1.0 convene open session, procedural business, 4:00 p.m. 1.1 call to order. The regular board meeting of the Renfrew World Unified School District is called to order on March 24th, 2022 at 4:02 p.m. 1.2 roll call. Trustees to identify themselves by first and last name to formally establish quorum. Do not move the trustee area 4.
Bill Bellinger, trustee area 1.
Dana Ridland, trustee area 2.
Cindy Gardner, trustee area 3.
Jordan Zarate, trustee area 5.
And everyone is here, so we have established quorum. 1.3 pledge of allegiance to be led by Derek Swine.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.0 adoption of the agenda. 2.1 proposed revisions and deletions. None. 2.2 proposed addition of agenda items pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, subsection B, subsection 1, subsection 2. None. 2.3 proposed adjustments in the order of business.
I have a question before we move further. Is anyone need to wish to go to closed session? Okay, thank you.
2.4 adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Cindy, seconded. Dana, any discussion? Calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 3.0 closed session declarations. We are not moving to closed session, so we are going to, can I just get directed to 6 p.m.? Or can I?
Yeah,
skip to 8.0?
Yeah, 8.0.
Okay. So 8.0 public testimony for Mary.
None at this time.
And we will move to 8.3 RTA and CSEA representatives.
None at this time.
Seeing none, we will move on. Reports and presentations. 9.1 report on the district plan for the state's A3G Brand. Heather Dominguez, Director of Educational Services.
Almost there.
Well, I'll say my good evenings. Good evening, board president, board, superintendent, community members. I'm going to share with you a little bit of information about a new grant called the A3G Brand. There we go. All right, so first of all, what is the, oh, I want to go back one, please. Oh, I can go back. All right. There we go. All right, so first of all, what is the A3G grant? This is a grant that is intended to increase or improve services for foster youth, low-income students, and English learners to improve A3G eligibility. And it's really about access and success for our students. There we go. So how much A3G grant funding will RIM receive? There are two components to this grant. The first is called an A3G Access Grant, which is $146,342. The other component is an A3G Learning Loss Mitigation component, which is $75,000. And the total A3G grant is $221,342. The expenditure timeline has not been released that I was able to find. The plan is to be developed by April 1st and then board approved, but there is no requirement to submit the actual plan to CDE. It has to be available for audit whenever if we go through an audit, we have to be able to present that to the auditors. Let's see, how do I say this? We are very gracious and very, appreciative and grateful, thank you, for all these funds that we're receiving from the state. However, the timelines for plan development and some of those components have been a little bit challenging for us. So we're moving forward though with some of those planning components. And I think this evening you may see some threads going through some of the presentations that show the dots connecting. They call that the through line, how we're trying to kind of connect all of these different components. So the A3G plan must describe how the funds are going to increase services for our unduplicated students. It has to reference the number of pupils who received D's or F's or failing grades in spring 2020 or during the 21-22 school year, or who were identified to retake A3G courses. How the plan is going to supplement and does not supplant the LCAP and AB 86 learning recovery plan, and a description of how all pupils within the LEA, particularly unduplicated students, will have access to A3G courses approved by the UC. So what are some steps that we have already taken as we move into this planning phase? We have reviewed all the courses at RHS and have updated many, including the CTE courses with their A3G compliant. Currently, all RHS courses are A3G compliant, except for PE and STC. That was a big effort. We found just doing that alone can improve our numbers. We have extended Avid offerings and initiated training for a school-wide focus, and most of the teachers are Avid trained, and you're going to hear more about Avid this evening in the Avid presentation. This year, we scheduled several meetings with what's called the California College Guidance Initiative, or CCGI, to discuss a partnership for data cleanup. However, our pandemic scheduling created some challenges. I think we probably scheduled 7 meetings with them. And because of sub-release time, just number of challenges, we have not been able to make that happen, but we're not going to give up. We're going to persevere, and I'm still in communication with them for that to happen. We removed some barriers to open our AP classes for all students to encourage more of our unduplicated students to participate in those classes. We attended an A3G Promising Practices webinar with the RHS admin, the counseling team, and began some additional data cleanup that we identified through attending that workshop just between our areas and how it talks to the college platforms. What many of the schools that have worked with CCGI have found out is that it's not that their students have not made the eligibility, it's that the data systems are not talking effectively to each other. So the data cleanup, making sure that our classes are coded in such a way that they're being interpreted in the same way at colleges where the students are applying.
So is this the transcripts, making sure our transcripts are correctly received, is that the data?
That they're received correctly and that the courses are coded correctly so that they're getting the A through G credit through the college that they're attending. So that's going to be a continuing process. And then we do have summer school for credit recovery and A through G recovery. So that's a grade recovery, correct? So that we can up our A through G completion rate. For some of the students right now, the counselors have been tasked with generating a list of all of our students who are either credit deficient or who are A through G deficient because they did not get a passing grade.
Now, I know that sometimes what has happened is that during summer school, because of getting enough staff to teach and stuff like that, some of the students are taking, like, they passed maybe first semester of history, but didn't second semester, and they were put into first semester, and so they're not taking the correct semester in summer school for that recovery. So are we looking at maybe kind of correcting that?
We are looking to make corrections to that. So that's why they're generating the list right now, so we can determine who are the students and then we know what staff, how to staff and what courses to offer to best represent. Now we won't know the students are deficit based on this semester, so we're having to go based on last semester and do some prediction as to what we will need to offer. So, and we have to be able to staff it.
And those deficiencies go back to last year and the previous year, because I know that we had some issues with a lot of Ds and Fs.
We're starting with our seniors as priority and working backwards.
So showing my ignorance here a little bit, is it possible for RIM students to complete any of their A3G requirements at MPH?
No, don't believe so. They need to be completed here at high school.
Are there opportunities in other school districts, possibly taking foreign language in middle school or taking technology courses? Is it possible in other, with our competition, for them to don't have that available to them?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm just getting a nod from across the room who has more high school experience, so it is possible.
So conceivably, this grant could possibly extend to MPH, maybe in terms of looking at A through G and unduplicated students and the like.
Yeah, those are the things as we develop the plan, and the plan will probably be fluid. I mean, the state has allowed us that sort of the ability to make adjustments, but they haven't given us a whole lot of information about the grant. Like, I've been in correspondence with a gentleman in the county who's helping to facilitate this, and he's going to be sending me some information on acceptable uses and those kinds of things, pieces of sample of the plan, those things. Oops. One of the other things you're going to hear this evening when Mr. Michelson speaks about the WASP recommendations is that there's a whole component within the WASP recommendations piece that will be supported, could be supported with some of this grant funding. So there is there's a completely new goal that was created this year through the WASP visit, and the school has already begun to develop some strategies and ideas on how they're going to address that WASP recommendation, which will in turn impact the A through G. So you're going to hear about A through G components as we talk about AVID, as we talk about the WASP recommendations, a lot of conversation about A through G. The other thing I wanted to provide is just a couple of data points so that you could see the need for this A through G focus. So you can see that this is a comparison between state A through G requirement data, county, and then RIM. So you can see that we have some the resources that can be very beneficial to help close that gap.
How much will we be categorizing our courses so that they will become A through G compliant? How much do you anticipate that's going to affect our percentages, or do you know?
Well, I know that we've had quite a few that weren't tagged as A through G, so I think that's going to help a lot, but I don't know that it will help, completely.
I think that if you look at the DF rate, the history of the DF rate, Jordana, you're going to see that the bump may not be as great as you think it is because of the amount of Ds, Fs, and even if those kids are, if those classes are categorized as A through G and they go back, they got Ds and Fs, and so they didn't meet the A through G requirements. So that's a huge issue that needs to be tackled, is that DF rate.
Because the DF rate is connected through A through G, because although the A through courses are A through G compliant, they have to C or better in order for it to count towards our A through G requirement. I believe is the correct statement. I'm sorry, the heat is on. No, I'm okay. I'm all right. All right, the next data point is, now this is not specific to RIM. I didn't have this data specific for RIM, but just in terms of looking at the need to focus on our unduplicated student populations, this is the County of San Bernardino and how the A through G compliant, the students are meeting A through G eligibility at various student groups, as well as male, female, and this is for the county as a whole. Oh, I'm gonna forget.
We can, it's fine.
Yeah.
We're asking questions, so let's just let it go.
All right, very good. So this is just, again, some data just to show the need for, utilizing these resources for this purpose. And the last slide is just a copy of what the A through G plan template looks like. So this will be presented at the April board meeting for your approval. And between now and then, I actually met with the counseling team And we've gone, actually have a whole other sheet of some things that they brainstormed as a result of some promising practices webinar that we attended just last week. So they've drafted a document, and we're going to be meeting after spring break to see how can we partner some of those strategies that they've developed with some of the dollars that you saw represented here. And then we'll be discussing in cabinet as well in terms of what are some things that we want to be able to utilize those resources for. My understanding is that it is one-time grant funding, it's not ongoing. So it's not, in terms of hiring staff or those kinds of things, that's not something we do, but there are other things we can do to support A3G with this funding.
When does it need to be spent by?
That I don't know that's another question I asked the gentleman I'm working with at the county. Do we know what the spending timeline is? I don't know, Jen, if you've got any guidance on it. I went on the CD website and it just gave our allocation. It really didn't give a whole lot of other information. So we'll kind of fly the plane as we go, and we're already starting on some strategies and working with the counseling team and the administration at the high school.
And is the secondary TOSA also involved with this planning? Because I know that he's been an EL coordinator, he's been an AVID coordinator, and he sees a lot of the unduplicated count students through the years. And so just knowing some of the challenges, especially with EL students that have to take the ELD class, their schedules are severely impacted. So we're bringing him along too, right?
And one of the promising practices webinar that we attended, Fontana High School is a demonstration school for AVID, and how they can move people for A3G by leveraging AVID strategies was very, very impressive. So those conversations we're having internally because, how do you leverage what has worked? So those are additional conversations that we're having, and we'll see where that takes us.
So I have another question, because you triggered this. So, no, sorry. So we send high school teachers, I'm going to just focus on high school, not middle school there, this is Whiteside, but we send teachers to the AVID Summer Institute, which is very, very expensive. So if AVID strategies work, as Mrs. Erlinger is going to present, then to make sure that all of our teachers really have gone to the AVID Summer Institute to be on the same page, can you use some of this grant money to be able to send them to that institute? Because that is an expensive training.
You're the second person that can ask me that. So there's some similar thoughts out there. I believe so. That would make sense. It's professional development that would, and they highlighted AVID strategies as a promising practice for A3G movement. But again, I don't have those guidance documents that say this is an allowable expense and this is not. So I'm hesitant to be emphatic about that. But I would think that would be
because some of the quicker strategies just are very on point. So if all of our teachers have that training, then they're all speaking the same language, hopefully, and have the same language in their classroom instruction, whether it's touching on binder organization or actual instructional practices.
And that was the thinking when we identified the AVID 4Cs training for the PDs for this school year, where both of those days were devoted to that. And then of course we only were able to do the one day because of our COVID trade time, but that's something we're still looking at implementing next year so that all the teachers have been through that training as well. And then wanting to see evidence of those strategies being implemented in our classrooms because we know that they're very powerful for our students. Any other questions?
I think I asked him that.
Okay.
Somebody else might want some.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Did you want to say?
What?
Okay, it has Heather's name on it. 9.2 College and Career Reports Massive Program Update and Highlights for MP Intermediate School and Enrollment High School ROP/CTE Participation Completion Rates Program Highlights and Cost Recommendation Progress Updates. Heather's and guys.
We are a team here in the world. So I'm going to delegate to some of my experts and some start with our engaged AVID, our high school AVID, and to our team.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say the timer is not a cutoff, it's just a guide.
I know.
This
I
is
have
a
many
reminder.
questions. So my passion
It's totally fun.
We speak a lot about this.
No, it's on.
All right, well, good afternoon, esteemed board members, timer, cabinet members. We appreciate the opportunity. Similarly, we get excited about Avid. We went from having one Avid class for 7th and 8th grade students about 6 years ago to having one at every grade level now. So we're excited that we continue to have that elective option also for 6th grade. As we go through the presentation, you'll see that our numbers are a little down this year, but that's one of our focuses or foci, if you will, for this year is to look at our recruitment process and our interviewing process, because essentially you get those applications for Avid, in May, right? And so any new enrollments, we're looking at some of those options to include more. So as you get any attrition, if you will, RBA, independent study, you move off the mountain, those numbers are getting lower and we haven't already built in. So I like to, recognize where we need to grow while at the same time looking at our strengths. So in terms of our program highlights, what you'll see for this slide and the next one is a focus on the 4 major domains for Avid and essentially what we're doing to work on in these areas. These are things that we report in our certification penalty for Avid. So the first one in the area of instruction, we have our student agenda, our reminder binders, which we are excited we continue to get that money from Red Foundation for Avid and also through our grants. And so through our typical MPH grant, we get our reminder binders, which support Avid. And in fact, some of the strategies that we've been going through, like with, let's say, a student who is on a behavior intervention, is to say, can I see that reminder binder? Can I see that you filled that out? Can I see that you are organizing all of your work? So we're trying to even incorporate some of those Avid strategies into our intervention strategies. I know you've heard lots about Wicker in terms of learning logs, sharing monthly at our staff meetings. These are some of the things that go along with instruction. So just like you'll hear in an MPH staff meeting where we talk about our English learner update, we also do an Avid update at every staff meeting. And so our Avid team is able to share what's going on, and maybe they have a write-off competition, or maybe they're doing one of the activities with our community. Our 6th grade team, you'll see that in some of the slides. They did a community outreach program for pets, and we made like little pet toys at Christmas and holiday time. So essentially things we're working on there. More teachers are going to Summer Institute. I know we just talked about that. So we have 2 new teachers that we have planned to go to Summer Institute this year. And I believe we're going to be passing the reins over in terms of Avid coordinator. One of our new teachers who was trained this summer is going to be our new coordinator next year. So very, very exciting, and again, great information and resources that Ms. Phillips has provided for so many years as our coordinator. So she's handing it over to Mr. Pickens. So looking at domain 2, we have our system. So MPH, things that we're looking at in terms of our application and interview process. So again, recognizing where we need to grow. And a process for new enrollments, especially when they're throughout the year, we have that opportunity for Avid to go through the application and interview process. That's something that we're looking at. Continuing to use Parent Square as a communication tool to improve our procedures with Avid and communication about what's going on in the class. And then time is being put aside for our Redmond High School counselors when they come in, typically in February. Like you heard in the last board meeting, we did our RHS recruitment. So having these opportunities for the students to see specifically how 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then going into the high school, they can have that opportunity to go to the high school. In fact, I just talked to a student about how amazing Mrs. Erlinger is and the Avid program here at the high school, and that it is as the flyer she provided to us at the RHS recruitment lunch that we had for students, just sharing that excitement for feeling like Avid is part of a family, and how exciting that gets as they get closer and closer to college and career. So looking at leadership, our school leadership team and the Avid team, we collaborate pretty frequently. We have quarterly meetings with Avid, our Avid team and admin. And then our Avid coordinator is also on our school leadership team and participates in all of our leadership meetings once a month. And then culture, in terms of the classroom, we have our college and career walls or centers or sections in the classroom. We continue to include that in our parent square updates. We have college wear Wednesdays. We include that in our department focus through our PLCs. So essentially, if you look at our certification, these are the major areas that we continue to work on.
Mrs. Whiteside, so I have a question. When you, after the application process, who is involved in the choosing of the kids to put into the classes?
So that varies from year to year. I'll say the shutdown kind of changed us a little bit because we did the application process, but we didn't do the interview process. So that's the part that we're looking to include to ensure that our AVID team is part of that selection. During the shutdown, we continue to have a Google form for electives registration. And for example, like that's going out through our 5th grade visits and our 5th grade packet, going to our elementary principals and our 5th grade teams. But essentially it has been chosen, you know, through counseling and admin, going through the applications and requests.
So then here's a question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but in regards to outreach, because there are kids that aren't going to apply, who could really benefit from AVID. So how do you kind of take those kids into account and do that outreach effort? You know, does the counselor call them in and have a chitty chat? No, oh my gosh, this would be a great fit. Do you know what I'm saying? So that those kids are not dropped because the straight A student went ahead and filled out an application. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The ones that you really don't need this program.
I love it. I love that you're asking that question. That helps me kind of focus in on the things that we're doing. So our counseling team has created a slides presentation and they go into all the social studies classes. So if you're in 6th grade or 7th grade now, going into 7th and 8th, they get one of those presentations. And in fact, those presentations are next week. There is a section specific to AVID. And then our 5th grade visits are going on right now. We just had our first one for BOE. We have our CHE tomorrow, and then LAE is on Monday. It's also in the presentation for them and also in the packet. And then something that we improved last year was using the Google form for the elective registration so that it all goes into a Google sheet and spreadsheet so we can see the students have an opportunity to pick a 1, 2, or 3. But I think that area for growth is continuing to look at, you know, maybe students who didn't apply, maybe students who didn't put in the elective registration. And again, we communicate it with Parent Square, we do a presentation, we say, hey, AVID, we make a flyer. But we welcome your feedback.
No, but I'm just saying is that I know that there are kids, you know, as Jordana knows, putting together, you know, continuing this God's Lodge, there are kids in need that are the silent ones that you know really have the need of that particular program. And it's the same with AVID. And it's sort of like either by really talking to your teachers and pulling information and pulling them out and having conversations with them one-on-one to break down their barriers or maybe their lack of knowledge or they're embarrassed or whatever it is. It's that kind of thing. It's like, how can we be better at that? I'm not challenging you because Jordana and I just had this discussion about Scotch Lodge yesterday.
But maybe a system for teacher referrals to it.
Yes.
But I would also add that we've seen over the years, the high schools program has become incredibly powerful. We saw the data in terms of standardized testing, what's happened with our applicants over the years. It might also be part of an effort for our district to communicate out to families how powerful the program is. So it may not just be an MPH thing, it might be circling back, taking our successful seniors in high school, what they've done in college, and being able to carry their story back to elementary school students and the like to be able to show you get involved in this program, great things are going to happen.
Sort of like a did you know? Did you know how many students from AVID go on 4 years? And these are the 4 years that they got accepted to and where they went. And you know, now we have some in medical school and blah, 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 blah.
So it might be a greater PR effort outside of the excellent things that are happening at the high school and at MPH, taking more of a community approach and getting that messaging out there.
Oh, absolutely. I think to add
Spotlight on.
I like it. Well, and on top of that, I know our counselors, they do include a big portion in their presentation that they do. But something we've been also trying to do is to get student testimonials. And maybe if we could, you know, I'm just brainstorming, because we're thinking about this, maybe get an added section on our website that has maybe some video clips from our students as to why it's beneficial, you know, how it's helped them and prepare them for high school. We could definitely do that. Yeah, thank you. So,
But it seems like to even get the Abbott strategy spread throughout the school is even a better idea, because you're always going to have the student that is quiet, who does not have a parent who is being assertive on their behalf, and who won't step out. But if we can get the strategy spread out, that seems what Heather's working at is even a better idea. Thank you.
Well, the thing is though, is that when we get into high school, the high school Avid class has the supports that they do college searches in the class. They have they go on college field trip. They have the college support in the classes in Avid, so if you can capture them actually within that class itself at middle school, and then they transition to high school, then they get that added layer of support, and hopefully FAFSA. Hopefully line by line how you fill the FAFSA within the classroom structure itself. So that's super important.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the articulation, I think, has also been really beneficial to be able to hear what they're doing here at the high school and kind of tailor into that. We're in those meetings pretty frequently with regard to the MPH and the high school being in them together. And so we hear what the other schools are doing and again, do work pretty closely with each other, but again, always room for growth. I think that bringing back our college trips would also be beneficial. We've done Cal State San Bernardino in the past, as well as University of Riverside. And so we just haven't, this year kind of had a little bit of a halt on that. So, but I will say that our sixth grade team, that is kind of our newer Avid section. So in terms of our sixth grade, we tend to have either 2 or 3 teachers in the team. And so our teacher who teaches Avid, those students taught the students in the other side of the team some of the Avid strategies, and went in as kids and said, let's open your binder. Let's do a binder check. And so 6th grade kids showed other 6th grade kids how to do a binder check. A couple of years ago, before the shutdown, we had a Steps for Success night. We did 2 of those, and we have one coming up, Cast Prep. That'll be in April. But we had a student do the video on Avid. I don't know if you remember seeing that one, but you saw the 2 students walking down the A building, and they're like, have you seen the binder? And when you do this, you know, so much cooler to hear from an 11-year-old than me. So again, here are the highlights. I know that the timer is let me know my time frame. So in terms of 6th, 7th, and 8th, you can see some of the things that we have been focusing on. I think I kind of alluded to quite a few of those. We've also included the use of like virtual job shadow, identifying where our strengths are through those assessments in virtual job shadow. And again, incorporating the Avid strategy school-wide by including Avid into our monthly staff meetings. And including Avid strategies and some of the strategies we're sending out to staff. So lots of great things there. In program highlights, and I already addressed our numbers. Again, they look like they go up and then go back down again. So shutdown has impacted us a little bit, and I think we have a couple of great action items to go back and get an Avid section on our website, to get some student testimonials and look at our recruitment process and continue to improve that. And then just a little shout out as we end off, we always got to end with a positive. Not that all wasn't, but Avid school-wide, MPH Avid, you know, we're excited. We do this right off each year, and this year was about kindness. And so our students that won this year, Cole McDermott, Alyssa Del House, and Alan Rodriguez. So these were our winners of a write-off this year, which was on kindness, which I think is interesting to hear from students on what that looks like. So to actually see those essays was pretty awesome. So 33% of our teachers at MPH are Avid trained. That will increase because we have 2 new people going to the Summer Institute. And then again, the best slide. Essentially looking at what did kids say, right? Because I can tell you all about it, but from our students, taking Avid has helped me become a better writer. Taking Avid has helped me become more organized by showing me how to keep myself together and preparing me for high school. Taking Avid has helped me become better at things I'm not normally good at. Taking Avid helped me be a better listener. Focus notes have helped me to become better in all my subjects. It's not just about college. It's not just about going to college, it's about being organized. And Avid is a challenge to be better. Again, these are from our 6th through 8th grade. So, I always do include in the end of the slides, and I know you have access to this, some of the pictures in the classroom. What does Wicker look like? You know, what would you see in a sample? Like, what does a 3-week binder for Avid look like? How do we fill out our reminder binders, cornell notes or double column notes, tutorials and so forth. So I will let you peruse those as you look at the slideshow, and I will not further accept.
Oh, no, I would have said the timer. So since CSU just came out with a decision that it's also going to drop the SAT, ECT, so that's pretty much every California public school, and because there are a lot of private schools that are doing the same. Are we still encouraging students to take the PSAT? That's something that just throwing it out there. Yeah, okay. And then Heather, as we look at maybe using the A3G brand to send more teachers to Avid Summer Institute, that would maybe include the MPH, have a tutor teacher so that we can bring that person to them. That's just a question. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just asking, can we go filter down? Yes.
Yes, Mom. Like I said, I don't have all the parameters yet to that allow uses, but it makes sense to me. It does make sense to me. It's always the way it is. So once I get this allowed, it's solved.
Okay. Just because if the teachers in secondary are all speaking the same language in the classroom and using the Avid strategies, the vertical articulation, when the kids go from MPH to, it'll be just so they're already in the groove for high school classes to hear the same language and have the same actions in the classroom. Okay, cool.
And I can share with you as I exit that it is in our Title I funding for MPH in terms of the Summer Institute, so we've been able to carry that. And then we also use our Ribbon Foundation for the PSAT. Thank you.
One moment.
So my name is Jessica Erlinger, and I'm the app coordinator at the high school. And I'm just going to take you through a few things. The way I organize this presentation is it kind of starts broader, and then it'll get more narrow to our senior class because I have those data points for our senior class. Although it is full disclosure and incomplete snapshot because college applications are still coming in up to April 1st. Students are here today about one of the universities they're looking for. And obviously SIR is until May 1st. So we don't know where students are going with the exception of a couple of really enthusiastic few already committed.
You can't see my screen. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
Technical difficulties.
All right. Okay, so as far as what I did this year, we did attend the 5-day college field trip. So we were able to do that. We did it in early September and we captured both the 11th and 12th grade students this year. We were able to see 11 schools. And so it was one less than usual because we found that third school one day was just too much as far as Silicon Valley traffic was concerned. So we got a little bit more realistic this year with that goal. We were only able to secure one, formal college tour just because of restrictions with COVID, but we utilized the resources of past students from RIM who were able to give us college tours on those campuses. And sometimes those are even more enriching to hear from a RIM grad who's gone off in this new place and they're thriving. So that was really great. Our College App Co class is continuing on. We started seniors first semester, and second semester we've been focusing in on juniors. Yesterday, Julie and Cindy and Kathy were in the computer lab with our junior class, working through making a, I guess, data accurate safety match and reach list for colleges, so that our students are making sure that they understand where they sit compared to what universities are looking for. And this is not a class just for Avid students. This is supposed to reach out to all students, and we're trying to figure out ways to get more of our student body involved in this and utilize some of the resources that are being provided, like the expertise of Cindy and Julie, and having a counselor in the room to give them some input to their application. We did add a section of Avid this year, so there are 2 freshman sections as opposed to for the last few years, we've had 4 sections, 1 in each grade level. This year, we did add a second freshman class, and believe that it was with some of the money used for kind of intervention, things like that. We have 3 college age tutors on campus. We sort of were tutor poor because of graduations, COVID. We got lucky, and we have 3 right now. So our students have had access to college age tutors. We've had a couple guest speakers. Hoping to get a couple more come into the classrooms and talk about what's happening after. And as far as trainings are concerned, as was stated before in Ms. Dominguez's presentation, we had a site-wide training. So all of our teachers have kind of had some element of Avid training, and hopefully that will be completed by early next year. And those teachers will all be considered Avid trained, because there's a certain hour limit in order to be called Avid trained. So not all trainings are considered equal with that. So that's been what we've been doing this year. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So as far as enrollment is concerned, our numbers were up this year, and that is because we added the additional section. But our numbers have been steadily increasing. So I just provided kind of a 4-year snapshot so that we could see how our numbers in the program are growing. So this year, our enrollment is up to 106 students within the program. So what that means, as far as the breakdown of the classes, our freshman class is the largest enrolled because we have 2 distinct sections of Avid instead of just a single. And then, I have my sophomore, junior, and senior numbers with 18 graduating seniors this year. So some of our demographics at this point, because we are a fairly small school, our Avid population is actually at 13% of our student body is enrolled in Avid currently. So that is a significant, I guess, minority on campus. As far as the students that are within that program, at 13% of our student body, we have 76% of our students qualified for free or reduced lunch. 74% are considered underrepresented on a college campus as far as different indicators. Those indicators include minority population, LGBTQ+, right? So there's different indicators that would be considered underrepresented on a college campus. So 74% of our students fall under that blanket. 36% of our students are from a migrant family or identify as being from a migrant family. So that would mean that they are either of foreign birth or citizenship, or their parents are. And so, a smaller population but still reflected. Our first generation numbers this year are 84%. 84% of our general population of Avid students are first gen. This year in the senior class, 100% of our seniors are first generation students. So that's really cool. As far as the English learner one, I added that one kind of last. But because of the high school, and I'm not sure what the restrictions are in the middle school, you can decide to elect not to be an ELD. And so we are housing 9 in our program. Within our numbers, 9% of our students are still classified as English learners. So I thought that that was an important thing to bring up too, that our students, almost 10%, 9%, are being housed within our program, but they are classified as English learners as far as our dashboard is concerned. Okay, so now focusing in on the class of 2022, because obviously that's where I have the most information as far as what the students are doing next. So we'll jump into that. All right, so you asked for sort of attrition rates and what the retention looks like within the program. So for this class specifically, I traced them over their 4 years and had seen one. But it stayed the same between sophomore and junior year anyways, so I didn't think it was necessary to have both. So for the freshman year, 27 students were originally enrolled in the program. We are down to 18. As Ms. Whiteside talked about, sometimes there is things like students move away. I can think of a couple anecdotal examples of that. But beyond that, what we're doing here is sometimes students do get placed into our programs. So one of the questions being asked by Ms. Farmer in the last presentation was, how do we find students? And really how we find students is a testament to Kathy, who was endless hours of searching through students to find recently reclassified English language learners that have the GPA that sort of hits in the mark. They clearly have the drive to go on, trying to pull them into the program through personal meetings and contact and relationship building. And so with that, sometimes we get really excellent candidates, but some students that are put into the program aren't always the right student. So as you can see from the data that I presented on the previous slides, what we are looking for is to serve our underrepresented populations on campus and get them to the places that they need to be. And so not every kid needs AVID. Kids benefit from AVID, but not every kid needs it in the same way as some of these vulnerable students do. So that is also one reason for the changes in numbers of leaders.
Do you still see because of the master schedule that impact student schedules, especially in 11th grade? Do you see like some of the kids go in freshman year, maybe they drop out, either their 10th and 11th, and then they come back again when their schedule sort of lightens up again? Not lightens up, I shouldn't say it that way because it says, oh, you probably be free, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah,
there have been past conflicts. I do find that even I've had some senior years, again, so I can speak anecdotally about certain students that I can think of who had a conflict with physics, or so there's always going to be those sort of course conflicts that we come up with. And I have seen students who in sophomore year wanted to take, both a language and, a elective that they were passionate about and sort of enter in junior year. We do try to retain students all 4 years. That is the goal, that is the contract, that is the idea behind the program, is that you enter freshman year, you exit senior year, you're in it for all 4 years. But there are always those cases where some of those kids are really passionate about a subject, or they really do want to try something, and it just doesn't work. It's a first conflict. All right, so here are some of the things that our 18 have done so far. And these aren't incomplete because I don't have everything quite yet. But our class average, our UC GPA, the average for our seniors is a 3.4. We have had so far 4 full tuition scholarships extended to our AVID seniors. One is a blue and gold, and 2 were for private schools, and then one was the Mustang, San Luis Obispo Mustang Honors Award. 94% of our students have been accepted to a 4-year university, and most of our students have been in the program that are at the senior year. The average is 3.7 years in there. So that's kind of our overall for our seniors. So here's the list of schools that our students have been accepted to so far. So you can see there's a nice cross-section of, I think most of the Cal States, if not all of them, are represented. Fresno got a lot of new hits because of touring Fresno for the first time over this year. So I had lots of students apply, which is kind of neat, but it's never been on my list before. We had some UCs, again, Berkeley hasn't come up yet, it's today, so we'll find out if we've got any students into UC Berkeley this year. We did get a student into UCLA from our program, which is really exciting, and that student was accepted into UCLA Nursing, which has a 2% acceptance rate, so it's really an incredible feat for that student to be able to accomplish something like that. But yeah, so we have some really exciting, acceptances that we've gotten so far, and hopefully just a couple. So as far as our next steps, we talked a lot about school-wide strategies and needs. So one of the things that our school really does need is FAFSA assistance. One of the things that I'm endlessly coming into conflict with is a misunderstanding of what that document is and what its purpose is. And so it's not just, again, for our Avid students, but for all of our students who need access to information about how to get to the next step and to be able to, you know, maybe access higher paying jobs and all kinds of exciting things that could happen if they open the doors instead of kept them closed. And I think that that comes from community outreach. I think that that was discussed previously about having more outreach within the community, but I do think we need some understandings of what these things are and why our students should be participating in that, and what the benefit is to the family and to the student. As far as school-wide strategies, being that, you know, and Ms. Dominguez was talking about how we had a 6 season Common Core training, maybe picking like one focus that everybody could start doing and focusing in on that one strategy would be a worthwhile start. It's hard to sort of think we're going to go all across the board, everybody, but if it's one thing and it's something that's manageable and it's something that everybody does, I think that it's attainable. And so one suggestion would be something like focus notes, because everybody has notes in class, so just sort of rethinking how students interact with their notes and maybe able to question them and review them and come back to them. With the trainings, because that's been a conversation too, amongst the A3G conversations, one of the trainings that I think would be really nice to be able to send some of our content area teachers to would be the PATH trainings, because with some of these trainings, they're very broad, but once you get into PATH, it's added in the social science classes, it's added in the math class. So it's something that you can take and use right away. And so I've done a couple of PATH trainings. My favorite was critical reading. It's something that I use almost daily in my classroom. And so I think sometimes if you have really content specific trainings, then you're more likely to get teachers on board immediately because they can see how they can use it with what they're doing right now. And it's not reworking everything, it's reworking something, so it's more effective. Support in creating a site team. I said yearly SI for elective teachers, I guess it's to that point. So our site sends all of our elective teachers every year to Summer Institute. And I think one thing that's powerful about that is that we are sort of trying to build up this idea of a site team. And every site is supposed to have a site team, and they're supposed to come together and make decisions. And we're at the high school right now, sort of doing this site leadership team, which, you know, Avid is reflected on TPIS. There's all these players in the room. And so I'm hoping that through the SLT, some of the site team creation will start happening. But, you know, that's something that we do need to build towards and work on, because we need a team to be successful, I think. Application support. So that's something that we are providing for our students through the college application help class. And we're trying to get the numbers there, but they're not always there. And I would like to see more students participate in things, even if it was during the school day. I just think that for a lot of students, I've come across a lot of devastating cases outside of Avid, where students have made a mistake on their application, not properly entering their A3G requirements, just not writing in a senior year at all. And these are things because, you know, some of these students aren't sure how to navigate this process. They don't know who to ask, they don't know how to ask. And so it's really hard to see that. And just like to see more outreach, whether it comes from Avid or like a community. I don't exactly know what the solutions are, but there's gotta be one out there. And then the last item is community service postings or better integration with community opportunities. As most of you know, if your kids have been through the college application process, finding opportunities within the community can really make an application shine. And our students don't have a consolidated space for community service. And if they were to have something like that, I think that that would be a really like a huge thing. We're a tight-knit community. I'm sure there's lots of people looking to help out students around here. I know that up here you take care of your own, but we don't have a place where kids can go to find those opportunities and be successful in those opportunities, because it's good for work experience, it's good for college applications, and they need those things outside of just what they do between the hours of 7 to 2. So, and I think that's it. I have a testimonial slide, but I'll just let you guys read that some other time. It's one of the students was talking about, she got into 7 of the 9 schools she applied from. We had a couple students get into all of them.
If you saw my spreadsheet, it's all red for a couple of my students. One got into 8 out of 8. So that's it.
So I have a question, right? Of course I do, because I have to. So I know that April 1st is the last of the acceptances. So maybe on your own time, not saying a deadline, but could you just give us an update on the four-year college acceptances, where the kids got into, that kind, just a little quick update on those, because that's so exciting. The one that got into the UCLA Nursing School, I'm so excited for her. She's excited. And then the other question is more for Heather Dominguez. The governor was making a requirement that all seniors would have to do the FAFSA. I have not heard of any updates. Has that fallen by the wayside because of COVID, or is that still going to be a requirement? And so are we putting that part in the plan too? Like, are we going to, how are we going to, this is not asking you for an answer, but it's like, how are we going to meet that? There are parents that are freaked out when they link when they're completing the FAFSA, it links to their tax returns, and they're like thinking Great Brother is looking at their private information. So we have an education issue for parents that, hey, calm down, you're not being spied upon, this is good for your kid, they'll get lots of money. So I mean, these are like components that are huge barriers in making sure that 100% of our seniors actually complete a FAFSA. And the other part is we need somebody who knows what they're doing. We can't expect our teachers to go, here, let me help you fill out the FAFSA. I know for me personally, I would freak out if I had to teach somebody how to fill out the FAFSA. So just questions as we go into that full meeting that requirement. Because I don't even, that to me is a huge challenge to overcome the fear of parents filling out that form, both because it's intimidating, but also it's asking for personal information.
Last year, Kathy Dubois had a couple of clinics, and she has a contact at Cal Baptist who took students line by line. I've gone to the clinics. Nobody else went to the clinics. It's like me, Kathy, and 2 kids. But maybe if we had something like that on campus, it wouldn't help with the misunderstandings of what the document is, but it could help with the general understanding of how to fill it out. Because I really found that clinic to be powerful. When I was in there, I felt like I could have filled out the document with them, and I would have had a completed document and know that I'd done it right at the end.
So 2 comments. One is, remember conversations that we've had in the past, knowing not just for everybody who was here. Also necessary for us to have assistance for students after, when they're at this point in the college selection process, the finances can be incredibly overwhelming. We're looking at such big ticket items, but also there's a lot of financial assistance available, whether it's grant or loans, and loans can be also very scary to consider. So providing that kind of assistance to help students pass after they've been accepted and they have decisions to make, helping them navigate through the decision-making process, is essential. And we don't currently offer that to students. So is that
We do have a night that we're offering in Julie next Thursday, or the 31st. Is that Thursday? Yes. So on the 31st, we're doing it via Zoom so that parents can be a part of it, and that anyone can access it from home. So the idea behind that is so that there are some of those conversations. In the Avid classroom, we do spreadsheet comparisons. So even today, this where you put in your non-negotiable items, how much you got grants, what exactly you're going to have to pay out of pocket, whether that comes from loans because you're going to have to pay those back, or parent contributions. But yeah, the financial literacy piece is really important.
Thanks. And the second thing I wanted to bring up is I've had the joy of being able to be in your classroom and Mr. H's and just different Avid classrooms, and being able to see the students taking ownership of their education, their tutorial process. It's wonderful. So I know that you have an open door policy as far as, as long as you know ahead of time, but I urge anybody here who hasn't had the opportunity to experience that to really take advantage of it. It's wonderful. It's a strong program. And it's great to see our students taking ownership of their education.
Ms. Throughline, we have an annual community service award that connects with a variety of different community organizations, and it's recognizing the service that people are doing. That's held the second week of May every year. That would be a great opportunity to meet some of those different organizations, make some contact there, see about the service opportunities that these could be involved in. Some of them already made some of those connections through whether it's This Rotary, but there's several that are represented yet. That's the second Thursday of May.
Where is that being?
This year, I believe it's going to be at the San Moritz Lodge on Thursday evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The topic remains the same. I'm just going to read the topic so everybody knows what we're still on. It's 9.2 College and Career Reports, Avid Program Update Highlights for MPH and RIN, ROE and CTE Participation, Completion Rate Program Highlights, and long-term applications and progress.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for taking off that time clock barrier because I was practicing my speaking today and I almost passed out a couple times. So I don't want to say pass out. I've already tripped once and I pass out. So thank you for doing that. But I won't extend.
Well, Stephanie, you get the time.
Okay, let's go. Okay. Good evening. So Stephanie Phillips, CTE coordinator, being part of the CTE RP program here for 29 years now, and I'm proud of what we have built and look forward to what we can do to bring students back to our district who want to participate in this kind of program. And we have had phone calls from private schools and charter schools in the past. The principal of the Calvary Chapel called about a year and a half ago, right before we went on COVID, and said, hey, how can our students be part of your CT program over there? Can they? I said, they absolutely can be what they have over. He said, what do they need to do? And I said, enroll in district. So unfortunately, but okay. So moving right along, oops. This is our CTE course description and pathways. We have 9 pathways and 19 course offerings. All of our courses are A3G approved except game design. Game design is new this year. We are in the process of getting it A3G approved. We work for Assembly County Superintendent of Schools, RFP, and Alliance for Education. We are partnering with them in the consortium. So we are working on getting game design A3G approved, but all the rest are A3G approved. Oh yes, and I did put that information in front of you. Sorry about that. With that, we are part of the College and Career Indicator on the California Schools Dashboard, College and Career with our A3G courses and CTE pathway completion courses. This is our data that we receive every year. Our attendance is sit down and all our data is sent to San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, and they collect our data. They do this program, this for us. So our course completion rates, our course completion was 93%, graduation rate, 100% of our seniors in the program graduate, and our placement rate was 95%. And we need to remember that this is last year's data, so our kids were in school for 3 months last year, but yay, they got to come back last March and we're still here. We have employment by industry, employment by grade level. We had 489 students enrolled in the CTE program last year. Some are duplicates because some are enrolled wood and welding or auto and welding or EMR and fire. We, on this data last year, we had 20 course offerings. We had criminal justice on this last year, and the teacher retired or resigned, and we did not replace that course. It was kind of sad because that was a really popular course. Enrollment by grade level, and our placement survey results are at the bottom with active military education, employment,
and those not placed. Placed means, what are they doing now? Are they working? Are they in any kind of education or whatever? Some are employed and education.
Stephanie, the 489 students, let me get clarification. Are they counted only once, or is this like the multiple across ones that you
That's
talked
all students, so some
about? Okay, gotcha.
could be in 2 or more pathways. So let's look at the data. There's lots of career college exploration in CTE. There's lots of money for CTE right now. Within the last 3 years, we have acquired $1,978,577 in grants for Rim School District, for Rim High School CTE, through Carl Perkins CT grant, and the K-12 Strong Workforce Grant. If you look at Carl Perkins at the top, last year's 2021 completed. We're in the current year, 32,758. CTIG, we completed last year's. This year, we have 340,000. K-12 Strong Workforce, we completed SWP1. We are now in SWP2 and SWP3. So we have about $1.2 million left to spend within a year and a half, and some by December. Yeah, yay. Anyway, so let's see the fun things and the things that really engage students. So our audit program, besides all the great things that the students learn in shop, we also participate in NHRA and PSCA races. This race was March meet at the Famoso Raceway in Bakersfield, beginning of March. We have a race car in there, which the students built years ago, and the students maintain it. The middle picture, you can't see it real well here, is the race car with the teacher and the student standing in front of it, in front of our beautiful new mural out back. Our students also participate in the NHRA Las Vegas Raceway races in November and October and November. And our students are the pit crew. They are in the pits working with the racers. Last year we did it virtual. I shared that report last year. I covered the classes. The teacher was there with the GoPro, and we were in the race car with them going down that raceway. You talk about fun and exciting. It was really fun and engaging. Along with that, when we show up to these races, we show up in style. Rim High School, not very many high schools, very few. Maybe I think there's one other, Bakersfield, or one of them was one that had a race team.
Wasn't it, we went up to Porterville and they knew of our program, like they were like, whoa, and they have a race car.
Yes, yes, and we continually participate. This is the 23-foot toter home, 42-foot trailer that was purchased through donor funds about 5-6 years ago. When we pull up in that, the crowd and the people are like, is that what our money is going to through school districts? No, because we have a disclaimer that we put on the side that this was not purchased with any kind of school or government funds. This is all purchased with donations. But in that houses our race car and all the equipment supplies needed for the race. And it's really awesome and cool when you see it out there. Another really great thing that we participate and take our students to is the NHRA Youth and Education Services Career Fair. This happens in February and November. We take our auto students, our wood, welding, graphic design, and many other students on campus. Well, they're usually part of our program. It's a great opportunity for students. This program helps students focus on goals and continued education while allowing them to learn about and explore various career opportunities. Unfortunately, this year, both of the dates that this fell on, both in February and November, happened to be holidays for us. So we were not able to take a bus, but it's free to our students and their parents. So we put the information out there to the students and parents, and some did show up and participate, which was good because we got some parents out there too, and they really got to see it and enjoy it. So looking at all the great things and fun things and walking through wood shop, this was really fun. On the left, there's a picture of Gracie and Peyton working on their tables. These young ladies, when they build this furniture, they start with raw wood. So the dimensions, the cutting and the measurements and the angles and everything that goes into it in the display here doesn't give it all the detail. So they're building furniture.
they're building and creating those chess boards with raw wood. They start with raw wood and they design it, put it all together and the chess pieces. And then Angel and Lewis were working on the CNC machine. Johnny and Christian, freshman baseball players, they play their freshman games at the field out by Hoffman. They don't have a pitcher's mound. And they've been trying to get a pitcher's mound. Well, they can't build something and leave it there. They have to take it with them. So they were researching this in wood shop, pitcher mounds, baseball pitching mounds, and looking into it. So they found some, they got dimensions and this and that, and they were building and constructing that pitcher mound in the wood shop. Looking at our welding shop, first picture is a go-kart that the frame of it, students are welding and putting it all together and constructing it with the angles and making sure all the welding is correct. The middle picture is Chad. He's a 3-year welding student. This is his 3rd year. He's a junior. He will be in it again next year. He's going into Marines. He's told me he's going to be welding in the Marines and he's coming out. And the Marines are going to pay for him to go to a trade school to further his skills in welding. He was showing us welding techniques this day. In this picture, it's hard for you to see, but the bench that he is working on, the equipment and the benches and the stuff in there, they're over 40 years old. So it's really kind of crumbling and falling apart. The furthest picture on the right, that's our welding booths. Those curtains, there's nothing left of them. They're over 25 years old. So our welding shop needs some attention. Guess what? We got ready. Anyways, knowing that and knowing that we need to address the needs of our welding shop, before our teacher, Jim Zimmer, and myself, we went down to Valley College. We talked with Josh, the instructor down there, who oversees and runs the welding shop down there. And Edwin Bogan, he is a representative from Miller Welding Equipment. So we had a great about hour and a half to hour visit down there, talked about a lot of stuff, got a lot of great ideas. Jim Zimmer's going to high school in Kalupa next Wednesday to look at what they've done down there in a welding shop. So in preparing our students to be competitive, I can't read that far, I gotta open mine. In preparing our students to be competitive for further education, training, and industry, we are working toward addressing safety needs, updating technology to industry standards and skills, and upgrading equipment at our welding shop. So we want to look into see what we can do to upgrade this welding shop. You know, we can bring this to cabinet, run it by cabinet as well. And I'm excited to share it with everybody. Because we want the best opportunities for our students and we want them industry ready. We want them to go into the our articulation credits and programs to the other places. And we're working with some of the unions as well. Okay, here we go. Healthcare and Emergency Services Training Center. I shared this last year at the board meeting. Well, now we have our ambulance simulator in there. That's it in there. It is stocked in our students and the teacher have been working in it and training in it. If you look up in the top right-hand corner of this slide, you will see a logo. This is our new logo. This was designed by one of our graphic design students. This is the Healthcare and Emergency Services Training logo that will be on our shirts, our polos, our sign that we're looking to find the material, welding material that we're going to make the sign to put on outside of the portable. So this is what it would look like on a white shirt. This is what it would look like on a navy shirt. On this side, you can see it has some detail and texture to it. This was printed on a brand new printer we just received for our print shop, and that's in here also. It's got a really cool texture and engraving-like aspect to it. Along with that Healthcare and Emergency Services Training Center, half of that portable is an emergency room. We have the bed in there, the crash cart, some furniture. We have the headboard that goes across the top. We have to have maintenance mounted, but we are still getting more equipment in. We have the curtains coming in, another whole order of medical equipment coming in. So once we get all of it in, that maintenance needs to mount, put up, just have them do it all at one time. The equipment stuff on the right side are some of the things that we have already purchased and already have in. And in addition to this, we have talked about an animatronic medical simulator mannequin. We are working with Garner Holt Productions on this. We've had a couple of meetings and we have a lot of money in the grant that can cover this, but we're talking about what do we want this thing to do? What do we want students to learn from this? So our guiding principles are students to have a healthcare experience as close as possible to what they encounter in the real world. We want to create conditions for students to gain experience with basic assessment, patient care as a way to boost their confidence to actually work in this environment. We want students working with a mannequin that is realistic as possible. We like the idea of placing the figure on a gurney, and you could have it in a seating position, a laying position for multiple different applications and contexts. And our values and form and function, values for form and function is something that performs at the industry's highest level of functionality, and at the same time elevates the aesthetic element to highly realistic levels. So we're talking about a simulated pulse, the ability to take the figure's pulse on the wrist and the neck, dilating, constricting pupils, blinking, blood pressure, temperature, lung breathing sounds, skin changes, can change the skin colors out, opportunities to practice treating basic traumas such as deep wound packing, well, creation of an application to operate the figure. So in other words, the instructor will hold a device, iPad or whatever it's going to be, and the instructor can make the figure react different and varied ways while the students are working. So it turns that predictable lesson into an experience of thinking on your feet. And then considering the multiple silicones, envelopes is what they're thinking to call them, for a variety of ethnicities, ages, genders, etc. So this is, according to Garner and Holt, taking the best Garner and Holt Productions has to offer, mechanical and engineering innovation, alongside high quality figure finishing. 2 nights ago on Channel 7 News, Montana High School Summit with their lab that Garner and Holt produced for them, or that they partnered with, and it was exciting. And I thought, oh, it's going to be real one day. Our mannequin, and people can come up and check it out. So we'll see where this goes. We are in the design and development and research. So moving on.
So, Stephanie, did you say you have funds?
No. Oh, yes. We have the funds for that. Yes, because the way the grants worked, and again, this all goes to cabinet. So yeah, because when we wrote the grants, we were able to use it for salaries and benefits, and then salaries and benefits are a match, so we can't use it for salaries and benefits. So we have to adjust it and move it somewhere else and spend it. So we have funds for it.
And what's your timeline?
That one needs to be spent by June 2023. So here, what over here?
Stephanie, who's training the kids to correctly take the temperature and do the vital signs and all of that? Because the instructor obviously is going to be doing computer work, the iPad, or operating the mannequin, but who taught them how to do this stuff? So is it going to be your EMT person?
So this is where, when all this comes together, we've already talked with doctors and nurses at local Lake Porterville's. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have the doctors and nurses at Loma Linda and Mountains Community, and the fire departments and paramedics are very excited and interested to be a part of this.
Could this also provide a training opportunity for the firefighters and paramedics as well? So for practicing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we want to share it so people know what we have, and people in the community with kids in private schools and charter schools want to come here. Television and video production, media arts and game design are all taught by Mr. Powell. Television video production, we're in our 21st year of room today. Media arts, we're doing all kind of great stuff with that, and designing. Game design, this is our first year for game design. Students are coding and creating their own games. The picture on the left is Patrick Volante. He's a 2011 grad. He is a cameraman for the reality TV shows Wipeout and Ninja Warrior. He visits our class every year. He comes in and shares real world experience and training with our students. The middle picture is the brand new professional grade camera. It's called the ROWUSD Mini. That's what they use in industry. And we got that with grant money. And you see how engaged and excited the students are. I see them in the fall with the periods that they have TV media production and media arts, and they are so excited with this camera and so engaged with it. On the right up there is Jessica Donald. She's a 2019 REM grad. She's a film major now at CBU, and she comes in and talks about the film program and her experience in college. So the students get to hear from the students who are in the program, the graduates, and where they're at now. And like I said, we're in our 21st season. So graphic design, in keeping with industry standards and experience using grant funds, we purchased a heat press, a white toner laser printer for full color transfers, new screen print equipment, direct garment printer, 3D printers, and a state-of-the-art commercial wide format printer, which is a printer picture in the bottom. That's not Mr. Wilson there. That's the gentleman who brought it in who was training Mr. Wilson. The old printer we had that did a fraction of what this did was 12 years old and it was failing. So we needed a new printer, so we went with this printer and we purchased it through the grant funds. On the left is Ashley doing the whole I just lost the word.
Process.
The whole process, not process, we have a directed garment printer also. Designing the shirt, they designed their design. You see her design at the bottom. So they designed their design, then they put it on the yes, thank you. Oh my God. Okay, silk screening. I've only brought to this, I don't know how many times, and I know this, but anyways. Okay, and moving on, with this 3D printer, Mr. Wilson has partnered with the ceramics teacher, Mr. Steinmeier, to design and produce logo stamps. So the right picture on the right are the 3D logo stamps with 3D printer. So with ceramics, they can do 3D designs. And customer service, we have our students organizing and stocking the store, making the posters, making the advertisements. Just so everybody knows, we have put on the calendar our career college fair for next year for September 14th. And it's a big one we have in the gym. And we have a flyer, now we're starting to mail it out to our representatives, those who have participated in the past and those who may be new and be there this year. And we have it in September, so we don't worry about weather, because we've had it planned in October and April in the past, and those times we've had bad weather. Well, actually 2 or 3 years in a row with bad weather. Any questions? Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Boss recommendations?
Pause for what?
Yeah, boss recommendations.
Oh, like you want pause?
Or we can
pause.
whatever.
All right, good evening, board president, board members, superintendent, cabinet. You do have a cheat sheet in front of you, as well as several Bring Pride cards if you guys are on campus. And you see a student exhibiting positive, ready, involved, determined, or excellent behavior. Please feel free to fill one of those out and give those to our students. They are put into a raffle for a weekly drawing for Brim swag. So currently they get a sweatshirt, a hat, and a pair of sunglasses. So
I'll wait for this a second.
so I was asked to keep my remarks very direct, and we'll focus on recommendations, creations, and then modifications for
the WASP recommendations. So that handout will be much more beneficial, much easier to follow than the slides, but we'll move on. All right, so this is the part that if you would look at, it has the March 2019 goals, the November 2021 goals, and then the changes that were made. And we'll kind of focus on the changes for each goal as they moved from or been modified from March 2019 to November 2021. All right, so our WASP goal 1, there was no change, and I know you guys have already received this presentation, so please, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. But there was no change to our WASP goal number 1. And then on there, as well as on the back side of your handout, it's going through the year and then what you're currently doing on campus to help meet that goal, or continue to meet that goal. All right, so goal 2, our college and career readiness. And we focus on this one a little bit more because this was a completely new goal that was developed for RIM High School in November of 2021. And so that goal is to create a school-wide strategic plan to increase college and career readiness that includes, but is not limited to, A3G completion rate, D&F rate, the decline in CAF scores, and in ELA and math for all students, and enrollment in AP courses for all students. And I know that a few of those things have already been addressed, but this year to meet some of those goals, as you can see, we have the college health classes for 11th and 12th graders, and the most recent meeting for that was yesterday. That takes place on all of our PLCs. We have the development of Route 101, and that's part of our AVID program. That's where they do a lot of the tutorials and the college and career student lounge. That has been developed with new furniture, paint, and they've also got posters and other things that are going up to really create that room. We have our FAFSA workshops in fall semesters. If we did have 2 of those this last fall semester. We already received the information for our A3G course approvals for Ms. Dominguez. And then kind of if we move to our ongoing, we are working with SLT and counseling to develop that overall strategic plan. And so that plan has not been developed yet. It's currently in the works. Any of your questions for goal number 2, if you have any?
No, I'm
We're trying to find the presentation.
It's where do a search at top on WASP.
I apologize for that.
That's
I haven't received it.
I got it.
It should be.
And I did the search. It's not in the list. It's okay. Good guy.
Okay, all right. All right, for our WASP goal number 3, the change that we're looking at is working with the district and our site leadership team to develop a PLC schedule to give our teachers time to work on all of those collaboration, data analysis, creating those common assessments, those common assignments, common labs, so our teachers have the correct data that they need so that they can modify instructions to enhance student learning. All right, and then goal number 3. The only change for this goal was that we needed to, let's see. So all they did was change the word to continue to work on this goal. And so that was the only change to recommendation.
We still have work to do.
Yeah, we do still have work
Really what
to do.
it is that's what I'm saying. We still need to do.
Right? At least they were saying it nicely. And then our critical area number 5, we are moving forward with embedding the SLOs into our RHS culture. So this is where our grand prize committee. This is where our lost goals, our slows, our SIPs goals are presented at every staff meeting. They're presented at every department meeting. They're presented at every SLT meeting. We go over them in our ILT meetings as well. And so we're really trying to embed all of these things into everything that Brent does. And then if you do look at your handout, there were 2 goals that were removed from the WASP recommendation to the most recent WASP visit. That's the point, there's somewhere in my. There.
Meaning they were accomplished.
What's that?
The
Yes,
goals were
yes,
accomplished.
they were removed, yes. All right, and any of your questions on the recommendations made by the WASP committee? Of course.
Okay, so going back to the new recommendation, which is college and career readiness.
Yes.
Basically, my understanding is that we have a lot of pieces, but we need to pull it all together to come up with a comprehensive, well-rounded plan to pull it all together. So we got pieces all over the map. One of the things on this presentation, it says, find ways to increase in-school intervention time to help increase consistent college and career readiness conversations. So that's like saying, we're looking at the master schedule, we're trying to take minutes of each little thing and reduce nutrition, reduce whatever, to try to come up with a 20-30-minute plan, a time period within the current schedule to do intervention, college searches, career, virtual job shadow, to finally utilize it outside of CTE. No offense, Stephanie, but it really does need to be school-wide. So is that what my understanding is from this little synopsis here?
Yeah, so that is part of it. So on the back side, for the 22 to 23 school year, that's part of our conversation is adding that advisory committee. Now I know there's a lot of parameters that we need to stay in within school minutes and making sure that we meet all of those obligations. But yes, we are working with SLT to try and create that advisory committee so that teachers do have that opportunity to, most importantly, one, build those relationships and teach some of those skills and give that information that students really need to meet some of these other goals.
Oh, wow, added strategy.
Right?
Just saying, and there's another way, something else we could put in the plan. Okay. And they're coming back in 3 years, correct? Because this was our mid-cycle.
2024. So I don't know when in 2024, but
No,
2024.
yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
9.3, local control and accountability plan, LCAP report of educational partners input for the 3-year LCAP cycle, 2021 through 2024. Heather Dominguez, Director of Educational Services.
Hello again. Just a quick update. I saw on my watch that I got an update from the gentleman from county, Tim Bias, with some updates and information about that A3G grant question. So I will include it in my Friday update for tomorrow.
Thank you.
So excited. I was like, ooh, there's some of those answers. All right. 2021, 2024 LCAP educational partners feedback. So just wanted to start with this because ultimately this is what we're about. And as we're talking a lot about college and career this evening. We ultimately want our students to be prepared for whatever it is that they want to do when they leave us, that they have options available to them, whatever they choose to do once they leave our doors. In terms of the educational partners formal meetings that we have held, here's the schedule for this year. Our first one was held on February the 10th, and we discussed the purpose, the process, the follow dashboard data, and our LCAP metrics, which included some of the components of that document I shared with you a while back that shows where we were and where we're going and where we've been, that document. March 9th, actions and services and a needs assessment, that other document that showed where we are with our actions and services was shared. Then we have another meeting on April 13th, which will be feedback and input, which is really where we're getting more of that from our stakeholders. And then we have our LCAP public hearing and then the presentation of the final LCAP for approval. So in terms of our participation in those meetings, our first LCAP meeting where we talked about the purpose, process, and dashboard metrics had 10 participants. LCAP meeting number 2 on March 9th, actions and services and needs assessment. I must have done a bang up job on the first one because I had all 3 participants the second time. So that was a little disheartening. Bill was one of the ones of the 3, so that was a little discouraging. But one of the things we talked, I mean, I wasn't discouraged that Bill was there. That didn't come out right. I'm sorry, Bill. I was hoping you would pick up on that. That's not what I meant. I was just kidding. Okay, moving on. And so one of the things as I've been attending some of the LCAP workshops, where I'm hearing that this is not unique to Brand, that many of the districts are struggling with getting people to participate in the sort of official LCAP stakeholder meetings. And so one of the presentations I attended this last week, a gal from the CDE, her name is Heather Bell. Lots of Heathers in the world all of a sudden. There weren't that many Heathers before, but now they're just coming out of the woodwork. Heather Bell gave a really great presentation on educational partners and talking about how do we use the opportunities when we have our folks gathered together to really glean insights and to be attuned to what we're hearing, maybe not in an official LCAP stakeholder meeting, but in some of our other gatherings, such as Principal Roundtable, learning support workshops that we've held this year, our DLACs, our ELACs, our school site councils, our time with trustees, our Kelvin pulses, our RTA and CSA negotiation and problem solving opportunities. Those are great times that we can capture really the heartbeat of what's happening within our district. I know some things have bubbled up from the times of trustees and some areas that we can focus on to help us improve our practice as we talk about continuous improvement. So that's really, we're going to have to look at all of those pieces as we think about our educational partners' feedback and not just these formal LCAP meetings for that purpose.
So, okay, see, I already have a question. All right. And so in regards to doing that, to tapping those entities, is there like a question, an overriding question, a framework for principals to take to PTA or the PTA president to collect the PTA input for time with trustees that we can take to time with trustees and say, hey, what do you think about college and career?
So glad you asked that. It's almost like I paid you.
Oh,
to ask that question.
I'm so, and I know I have not spoken to her on this.
Yes. One of the things that we are recognizing as we are talking to people and as we are having conversations about data, and as we're talking about our metrics and looking at that grid together, and the that's the touchline. The actions and services component. One of the things we're recognizing is that we have some really good things in that LCAP. Part of the issue is how do we get better at messaging and implementing the actions and services already identified in the LCAP to optimize student achievement? So how do we provide opportunities for times with trustees to say, here's how we're going to kind of prompt for feedback related to what's already in our LCAP? How do we get better at doing what's already in that document rather than what are we going to invent? What else are we going to try to do? Let's do what's in there better.
So you provide us guiding questions so that I don't have to think about it. Is that, I'm hoping you're going to say?
And that's feedback that we will take from the board, but I mean, yes, those
Because
kinds of things.
if you tell me what to do without telling me what to do, I can do that and then take notes and then just type them up in Excel and then distribute it to you. And the same with principals that have to attend PTA meeting, it could be the same thing. Simplifying it because it is a PTA meeting and you don't want to totally derail the meeting. But I mean, if we have that framework to work with, makes our job easier and gets to the point of what we need.
And if we have alignment between our SIPSAs and our LCAP And I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I should have said we all need it, we all need it.
So how do we streamline some of those practices so that I know many times with trustees, some things came up in terms of some things that we're already doing that there were questions about. Well, how do we, okay, that's great. That's not a good resource, but how do we improve the practices that we're using, for example, in our elements or those kinds of things? How do we do those things better? Is really what we're hearing. How do we have better data practices? How do we streamline the data that we're going to look at and look at that consistently each time we come together to monitor our progress towards those metric outcomes that we talked about? So that's kind of what we're hearing across the land, rather than what else can we do? How do we do what we are already identified as best practices and do them better?
Heather, one of the practices we used at Coachella, there was a large language barrier there. And when I was assistant supervisor services, one of the things that we did was a half sheet with like a data point and one question. And whatever meeting we went to, that was at least handed out and returned back in so that we had feedback on various topics that were in the LCAP that were manageable for people to understand one at a time.
Rather than a list, a whole document, all this stuff is a little bit overwhelming. So how do we chunk this throughout the course of the year?
Passing it out and gathering it back at these kind of meetings, like today we're going to talk about, I don't know, pick a topic or one day.
A3G completion rate.
Right. What do you know about that? And what do you think about that? And
Here's what our data shows where we currently are performing in that particular area. What are, and then gather data throughout the year on some of those pieces. And that's a great idea. But in terms of, what feedback are we hearing from the information we're gathering, that's kind of a summary in essence of what we're hearing.
because even with 20,000 students, we had 3 to 7 people come to don't have.
Yeah. And so that brings me to the last slide, which is our plan, do, study, act cycle. It's really getting really good at this, where we have our practices in the middle. We plan them, we do them, we study them, and then we act. Either acting by doing what we were already doing or by adjusting if we are seeing that the outcomes are not what we're hoping for. And then we continue that cycle.
So then you're having your feedback input in April. So can that feedback input get to the board so that we input how that is part of our LCAP discussion, because we should really be looking at that.
So from that, your 3 people. Yeah, so yeah, from the 3 people, sure, we all have 2 next time. Hopefully we'll have 1 next time. We'll have to figure out how to message better. I don't know. Any ideas would be,
Yes.
well, we'll see.
Well, I don't need to come next time.
No, I'm not gonna be there because no wonder I'm cutting people off by smart comments I make.
I have some ideas. I can email you.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Yes, I can put it in my Friday update following that date. Or another way if you want it in a different format, but okay.
Adding to the conversation earlier, as far as, I think we get really good information from time with trustees. I'd be really concerned about us trying to create that as an opportunity for us to speak to things as opposed to having the attendees come in with things that they wish to discuss. So I think one of the frustrations that we're not frustrated, we experience oftentimes people coming in who are frustrated and want to speak about something. And I'd be very concerned about us turning it into us dictating the narrative and making sure it's more a listening opportunity so that they can be heard.
Well, I also like to come in, I think it's not railroading the conversation by having one question that we come in with our own, saying, what do you guys think about this? And taking 5 to 10 minutes to collect feedback and input for one thing that we want to get information on, because it's a 2-way street. It should be us going, what do you really think about the district's college preparation, just that, because we're talking about college, and they give us feedback. Like some of it is they don't understand what resources really are in existence, or would it, you know what I'm saying? So we can also have something that we want to get from them. This is on our minds, or this is what we would like to know from you, and take 10 minutes of that time with them, just getting the input and putting a little time limit on it, even though the timer went a long time ago. But I'm just saying is that we can also have it two-way, but not come with a list of questions and make it very, very specific so that it's very time sensitive.
End with that and not start with that.
Well, and you just be mindful that it's not a lecture. This is what we do, and this is blah, 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 you know, but just to, hey, how do you feel about this? Is this something that as a district we're interested in, kind of getting a pulse, and we want to know what you think we do on it, we want to get better.
I understood it when you were talking about Cindy, that we might bring LCAP materials that were previously discussed in the last two LCAPs to our time with trustees to help guide an open-ended discussion, not maybe a structured conversation. But to say, here's what LCAP produced so far.
And just saying, we're maybe choosing one thing that kind of sticks out and says, based on what you're seeing, what do you think? How do we get better? Tell us how we get better, because I really want to know. Do you know research? Maybe the question has to do with climate and culture in general. Do you know what resources we have? Have you taken advantage of them? How can we get better at helping your child in mental health and social emotional learning?
And our hope and expectation is that the things that come up in time of testes are included in our anyways, right? So to say, oh, hey, that is already addressed in our LCAP, this is where we address it, and what are your recommendations for us improving on?
One of the things that actually came up with the three people that were at the last one was this idea of, sometimes using this terminology LCAP, some of our formal education needs can be off-putting to our community because they don't know what we're talking about. So if we can frame it in a way that's more like, hey, we want to be able to help our kids be better prepared for college and career, and what are your thoughts about that? Or phrasing it in a more user-friendly vocabulary, and not even mentioning that it's in the LCAP. Maybe we know it's in our LCAP. We have that, compliance kind of hat we have to have on in terms of that is in our LCAP. But it's not because it's in our LCAP we're doing it. It's because we believe it's benefiting our kiddos and it's going to help them be successful. That's the reason it's in our LCAP, because we believe that those are the strategies that are going to help them. So using some of that more, how are we going to help, vernacular rather than more formal education.
Right, and I found a lot of times in our time with the trustees, it's natural for us to begin educating, I don't have a better word right now, them on things that we do to address their concerns already, because again, it's rare somebody comes in with a concern and we're like, whoa, we've never heard of that before, we didn't know that that was a problem in our schools. It's usually something that is that we are aware of, and it's a continuing issue. We have kids that we're making improvements, and I know we're gonna share what we're doing there. So I think it could be part of how it already naturally occurs. Yeah.
I think you go back to the purpose of time with trustees when we started these. Yes, they were a sleep campaign, but they were also to collect that feedback and to collaborate and to give answers. Because we can't often give answers when someone's speaking at the podium. So we have to think of all the goals that we set forth for that time with the community. And part of that would be okay to have one question that we're seeking feedback for this one little thing in the LCAP this time, and seek it somewhere else. But it encompasses a lot of mission and goals in that one.
I like the idea of actually coming with something. Also, it's funny that what you just mentioned, Heather. I'm sitting here thinking as you're making your presentation, every time we talk about LCAP, we ought to be taking a brief moment to summarize what in the world is it? Because there's people listening and watching and going to come one later, like, I don't know what LCAP is. And there ought to be almost that summary kind of statement. I also like the idea of coming with one thing. It's interesting, even the other night, there was a parent there, but he didn't want to talk right away. So to have us kind of open it up and share something, an item that's about students that is meaningful, could be valuable and still be about listening, because it's still our goal, is to listen on something. That's what we're talking about throughout.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Heather,
The next scheduled time of trustees, April 20th, that just got set today, 6:00 here at the library. So if we have something for you, for us to have a conversation on something, that would be great.
And I can help you with what I did in the past.
Setting direction, 9.4, review and discuss mission, vision, and core values, Board of Trustees. So come on up for discussion.
Well, this was on our to-do list, but many things have sort of sidetracked about redoing our mission vision statement. So we'll put that on the agenda for next year.
I think it's fortuitous timing if we do start it, or at least start moving towards this project, because I would love to have, from a historical perspective, Michelle's input before she leaves us, and have that input ready and available for a new superintendent to help guide the reestablishment of all of these. I know we need all kinds of stakeholder input, but I think it's good time to build a garner Michelle's input what we can, and maybe help us, give us a good reason to start focusing on this a little bit more.
I would also add, going back to Heather's last presentation, where we have the portrait of a graduate, that in essence is our vision. So somehow incorporating the efforts put into our portrait of a graduate, which is the district-wide effort, and incorporating that into our vision.
So Jordan, piggybacking on what you said, so would you want us to do some kind of, because this work takes place in a workshop, so that you can have back and forth discussion, that you can have people, what we did last time in the workshop, we had teachers and staff and administrators, and they were part of the discussion, like when we were doing core values. Words were put up on the whiteboard at the district office, and there was discussion about what values really represent RIM. So it was a collaborative atmosphere. So, I mean, it really does take place in a workshop session. So are you suggesting that we should add this to the May workshop or create another workshop?
I would be open to adding it to the main workshop, but maybe if that was more a separate one.
I would believe it. I mean, I know we have a lot of meetings, but it's a lot of work, and I would advocate for a separate workshop for it.
What about a timeline that could be followed and starting the process that could be written prior to my meeting?
That could work too, but I understand what Jordan's saying.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of work. I mean, we worked many workshops on this, but we had one workshop every single month. So it was a different format of board meetings too.
And you might see how the equity and social justice mission statement ties into this work. So we are doing that work with Dr. White. So it might be natural time to see where we end up with that and Bill's reports to the board as we look towards these and see how we can update it to incorporate that, to incorporate the portrait of graduate, like Jordan said, even our instructional framework that was created with our principals and our leadership team and Heather. So there's some great new things that can be easily incorporated in this.
I think those are excellent points, and drawing on who we are today to inform and formalize who we want to be in this document. I think that's a good point.
Could that possibly be a focus for our retreat? I don't think we've actually started discussing what we want to do at our retreat. I think a year ago, we had a number of things already listed, but maybe that could be a focus.
To work on the timeline.
So the chapters of work.
So you're suggesting that at one point we have a workshop so that people also are participants in it? Is that what you're saying? So we would have to egg out maybe time in the morning or something, right? I don't know. I'm just saying that we would have to
What I'm thinking is if we can maybe have some homework or possibly get some input. I don't know whether it's necessary for us to do all of the preparatory work individually, but maybe start trying to gather data from various stakeholders, get input independent of our meetings, and if it makes sense, include a workshop to be able to kind of review and see if any additional information is needed, such that at our retreat, we have data available to us, input, various stakeholder input, possibly have some of them in attendance, so that we can really start hashing it out.
But a survey of like, or should it like with that information be a way to gather it?
You can, what ends up happening though is as the discussion flows, you really it starts to mutate and refine stuff with in-person work going on in the room. Right, so you can't say, put a survey saying, what do you think the values of our school district are? And just word, one word, two words, yeah, whatever. And then those can be put up on a board, and then that conversation can take place with stakeholders in the workshop. As for mission and vision, that I think is a little bit harder to do because you're saying, give me a vision statement. And that's a little bit different. I mean, but I think that Michelle's correct in the fact that Dr. White right now is taking words to fit into a mission statement for our equity committee. It's the first step in developing that mission statement, so we can mimic what she's doing in the same way. But at some point, you're going to have people in the room. You're going to have to refine. People are going to argue semantics of a word, not argue, discuss, because we didn't have it. There weren't arguments or intents like, oh, you suck when you said that. But I'm just saying is that there was a great flow of conversation in the room to really refine sentences and stuff.
Which I agree that needs to happen. I just, with LCAP and 3 people showing up and, what our participation is in meetings in general is very low. So I think there are people that have really great things to contribute that don't have the availability to come to a meeting or workshop or sit there for hours and commit to that. So I'd love to see something general go out to all,
so
students, all teachers, all staff, all parents.
So maybe we can mimic what's being done in the equity committee in the
Well, I was
same.
gonna say, there's all stakeholder groups are in that committee. So working committee, what do we have now, Bill 15? And so, let's see how that works, because we're doing all this work with that committee. Let's see how that mission statement comes out and see if that might just be double work if it fits this.
What's the
opinion? She's bringing sample statements from words we've inputted at our next meeting. So the timeline is to have that mission statement done before the end of the school year. So we could bring that statement to the May workshop. Right, workshop in May.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have a workshop.
So we could bring that draft and discuss it there and see how it aligns to this and to the other things we discussed.
That's it. We're good with that. Any other direction or shall I move forward?
I like the idea also, if that's for the mission statement for vision or for core values, possibly doing what you suggested, Natalie, in terms of seeking additional input outside of having an in-person meeting to be able to get.
I'm pushing the cart. Yeah. All right. 10.0 action calendar, 10.1 personnel services, approval of the tentative agreement between River World Unified School District and the California School Employees Association, CSCA, regarding Article 1 agreement. Look at my Roman numerals are being put to the test. 6 wages, 7 employee benefits, 12 leaves, and 13 expenses and materials. Fiscal impact.
$593,396, personnel, general funds, and various. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Cindy,
Seconded.
Jordan. Any discussion?
Thank you to all involved in hashing this out at the table. Appreciate all the hard work.
But I'd like Jenny or Heather to explain, we have funds to be able to do this. We know that we've been in challenging times. We're looking ahead to challenging times. So how can we do this?
We were drawing straws on who answers that this question, but we can probably both equally speak to it, saying that so if there's anything to add, please do so. So first of all, when we've been talking a lot about the budget at almost every board meeting, and then we had our first interim report in December. So from December to January, there was a lot of changes at the state level for how we're funded in the future years, not in the current year, but in the future years, which is a large component of how we evaluate what we can afford and what we can't afford, especially since a settlement with Barclay, when it has ongoing dollars, we have to look minimum of 3 years, if not 5 years out. So there was a lot of changes from December to January, just in the governor's proposal for the subsequent years. So in the years that 22, 23 and moving forward. And we kind of memorialized that in our last board meeting when we talked about the second interim report, which we were able to take those new assumptions that was in the governor's proposal for the future years. We had very little change in the current year for our finances. I mean, there's housekeeping, there's, Title I changes, 4 times a year, and we get new allocations, we'll get, the state's usually about 2 years we find little tiny adjustments as maybe a county school will adjust their ADA, if we're funded on a pass through, we might get a little, 5,000 plus or minus each way. So we're kind of always, it's not set in stone. So the current year, minus some housekeeping and normal adjustments has not changed, but it's our subsequent years, our future years that have changed. And we had discussions with management and both marketing units, during negotiations on a budget update, explaining what are the changes, how does this impact grant, and what can we now maybe talk about that we couldn't talk about before. So the biggest change, and that which allows us to, it's a big number on this agreement. 8.5% is one of the biggest numbers I think Brett's had in my history that I've been involved. So much so I had probably an hour conversation with the county today on, my advisor was actually at night, thinking of Ram, and really wanting that assurance on kind of what are we doing. So, they've already reviewed parts of the interim. They have no changes. There's a couple type of things that they've emailed me about the material, and then they will, and they've already calculated the new method of an LCFF funding, which is a 3-year average, and their numbers could be in line. So that was the biggest change, which was, if you remember from a slide at the last board meeting, and it's on the website, so if anybody wants to look at it and who's listening in the audience or on YouTube. And also we discussed it, like I said, with both marketing units management and at our recent budget committee too. There was a $1.9 million swing in next year for RIM. So that is significant for us. I mean, the district is the one holding the risk if that doesn't become written into law. Part of the conversation today was at the county level, they anticipated as a slam dunk. They wouldn't have allowed us to use it in our second term if they didn't think so. But I also assured them that we have, as a cabinet, and started some conversations with you, how we would have to react if the state changed its budget in June and July. And we didn't get the 3-year averaging because it was that piece alone. The COLA, the increase to the COLA, that doesn't do much. I mean, COLA funding is barely even flat funding and not even flat funding. So when we get a COLA from the state, that's not necessarily 5% on every single dollar we have. You couple that with declining enrollment, and we usually have less money year over year from COLA. Even though the per ADA amount might have gone up, the number of kids that it's based on goes down. And so, it's usually less dollars or not significant dollars, and it doesn't usually cover the cost of step and follow, which we budget for annually anyway. Health and welfare increases, utilities, and changes in that nature. We've also had, so the COLA, but wasn't as significant as that 3-year average. Another piece with management and CSEA is that the agreement comes with a cap on health insurance. So we had a fully paid gold and for some members silver cap on our health and welfare benefits. So we were able to freeze through negotiations those dollar amounts on a tiered rate. And so in my multi-year projection, so my future years, I was able to reduce the cost of health and welfare increases as well. So we have salary increases, yes, 8.5%, year carries forward. But I was also able to make a reduction to our budget in those multi-years based on the health insurance cap or the 2 bargaining units. So, and then when we think about a 2-year agreement, it is, salaries are frozen now, so we won't be at the table with the management classified to talk about raises next year. So, I mean, if you think about it, because Heather Michelle has had to get me here to at my desk, and cheesy. Yeah, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And I joke about my sleepless nights, but it's also real, because I do care and I want us to be fiscally responsible and solvent. And this doesn't come without still looking at, what 5 years out would bring, what the, mandated vaccinations or whatnot, what our enrollment do. So that's how we were able to have a fiscally sound budget and give the raise at the same time, and what changed from December to January.
Anything else? Anything else with it?
For me, and it comes from CSEA, and it comes down to language. And one of the biggest issues is previously, if an employee was out for CSEA, they did not have a substitute, which in many of those positions, they're unique positions. It's difficult to find those substitutes. They were paid at 100% salary. And so if someone happened to be out, they would continue to be paid. If someone ever chose to abuse that could cost the district significant dollars, as that person continued to be paid at 100% salary with no substitute in place up to 100 days. And that can be repeated every single year by law. So the good thing is CSEA also sees this as an issue. They don't want to use it either. So they step forward and agree to a 50%. So the law says 100% substitute or you can choose a 50%. So they've agreed to a 50% pay without a substitute. It's going to be huge things for morale of our employees that are so dedicated to working and see abuse. It's also really what the books of the fiscal side of the house calls so that is down the line. So it was the coupling of the cap on insurance with that 50%. To me, that's a huge item. And as you know, when it goes to management for cap on benefits as well, I'm very proud of the management team for taking that lead to save us too.
And it's also with the 50% more beneficial for students, since the students don't have those aides there or have the assistants there. So it has been horribly tough on staff, but also ultimately it's been our students who have missed out with those absences.
So I have listened to the conversations that have gone on this last year. Bus drivers who have come and said they're not getting paid enough. Administrative people, nothing I'm not talking about people in the offices and things like that. I've seen the notes that teachers say we're not appreciating them enough. So I know I, for one, have wanted us to do whatever we could within the restrictions of our funds, the limitations we have. We only have one pie. There's one pie that has to be divided up for everything. I'm a little concerned that we're trying to do something, but there's still a thought that the district is somehow getting something out of this. And what troubles me is that all of us are the district. The district is made up of our bus drivers, our administrative personnel, our district office personnel, our teachers, our students, our parents, all of those people are nurses, right down the line. That is the district. If we're able to do this, it's because the district together is going to benefit. That means that people are going to get paid more. And if we truly have the ability to do that, then I'm all for it. But I'm concerned that there's still a thought out there in our family that somehow the district is different and separate from some staff position when we all make up the district. And if I could somehow get us to realize that as a family, we gain together when we're able to do something as significant as this, as an 8.5% increase. I'm not sure how to say it any louder than I can right here. Thank you, ladies, for letting me see that.
One additional thing with that, just to reiterate what you said, Jenny, it's going to come up in the next agenda item. But it is management that also is going to be having that benefits cap, or and also school board members as well. So just to clarify that, this is something that we all will be experiencing and are ready to do so.
I just want to say that I'm very appreciative of the collaboration between district negotiation and CSEA. I think there's just been really positive collaboration that's gone on, and I recognize and appreciate it. And I think Heather, you're coming into this position helps renew that collaborative nature and just reset the relationship. And so I appreciate everyone's hard work on both sides of working towards this.
And I wanted to add, without getting too technical, if an employee with benefit cap chooses to buy up, or raise increase, and then there's a cost of share, those deductions would be taken out of someone's paycheck pre-tax. So that's already would be occurring. So there would be depending on what tax bracket you're in, you would have a benefit. And through two different organizations, AFLAC and American Fidelity, we have FSA accounts available through Section 125 plans, so where you could take, if you, are worried about more of out-of-pocket expenses, if you do stay within a district fully paid plan, then you can always elect that, which is pre-tax also.
Thank you, Heather, because I meant to ask. If I could use my 8.5% theoretically increase to buy up. So, thank you.
Any other discussion before I call for a vote? Right, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 10.2 Personnel Services, approval of the certificated management, classified management, and classified confidential salary schedules, including 2 one-time off-schedule salary settlements of $2,500 effective July 1st, 2021. The district contribution to health benefits will be changed from a gold plan cap to a hard cap. Single, $10,125. Two party, $18,885. Sorry, $18,685. And family, $23,820. Fiscal impact to be determined. Personnel general fund.
So moved.
Bill?
Second.
Cindy? Any discussion?
Again, just thank you to all involved for collaborating on this and negotiating and coming to an agreement that is beneficial to all sides. So thank you.
Calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 10.3 Personnel Services, approval of a provisional internship permit education specialist for Michelle Burrows effective March 15th, 2022, fiscal impact none.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 10.4 Personnel Services, approval of the settlement agreement and resignation of employee number 2607.
So moved.
Cindy, seconded. Any discussion? Calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 11.1 consent calendar. I will not ask for any items to be pulled as there is only one thing on the consent calendar.
May I pull an item?
I mean, I guess you can discuss that one if you want to, but can I get a motion for it?
So moved. Oh, second.
Cindy, or excuse me, Bill first and Cindy second. Calling for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 12.0 future meeting dates, regular board meeting, April 21st, 2022 at 5:30 PM, location to be determined. Regular board meeting, May 26th, 2022 at 5:30 PM, location to be determined. 13.0 adjournment.
I need a motion to adjourn meeting at 6:17.
Cindy,
Second.
second, Bill. Any discussion? On the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The meeting is adjourned.